you guys doing? It's early in the morning, right?
Yeah,
Not
about
that early
9:30.
anymore.
Yeah.
Is this like a normal thing for you when you do interviews? You have to get up early and like be on.
It is now.
Right?
Yeah.
It is now that we can't be out there in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. That's it. So, how are you doing anyway? How's life in down under?
Oh, it's not too bad. I mean, we're doing pretty well. It's funny because I feel like Australia was like the envy of the world for a little while last year, and then this year we've kind of like dropped the ball. Me and Scott have been in a lockdown for the last 9 weeks, I think. So
9 weeks. Oh my
we
god!
Yeah.
picked up a lot of new hobbies. So
Like
just
what?
been
How have you been killing time?
uh Man, I've been playing guitar and bass, which I mean, I'm a drummer, so obviously
Yeah,
that's really really fun for me and really terrible for everyone else in the house. I've been collecting plants. I don't know. I've been trying to do whatever I can do to pass time, really. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm playing a lot of guitar.
yeah,
Just a lot of little art projects going on, that sort of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't even
Our
know.
other guitarist has been doing watercolor painting. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
everyone's picking up new hobbies. Yeah, it's cool.
there you go. So that could be like the next album cover. The fourth album could be like some kind of nice watercolor
There
that
you
you
go.
made yourself.
Something
I'm into that.
made throughout this. Yeah.
Keep branching
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I always like the idea of a painted cover art, or like just an art for the sake of art as cover art. And
Yeah, like an album sleeve that you can put in a frame and stick on.
yeah,
Yeah.
It looks good on its
exactly
own.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go. You're already thinking about the next album.
A whole new approach. Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. So how does it feel releasing an album when you guys are locked down? That's a new thing.
oh, it's interesting. Obviously was not the plan. We were meant to be in the UK doing a Slam Dunk Fest and a bunch of side shows to coordinate with the release, but I mean obviously didn't happen with everything going on. But I mean it's okay. Like I think it's kind of nice to just know that it's finally coming out. It was finished recorded as of about mid last year, so we've just been sitting on it and we've just been waiting to share it. So it might not be exactly how we wanted to put it out, but I mean, it's nice to put it out. I'm not upset. I'm excited to put it out.
Yeah. So you said you were going to be in the UK. I'm from the UK, but I'm actually living in Montreal. And
Nice.
I've been to Slam Dunk Festival a few times. The lineups are just always like a dream for that festival. But
Yeah, I was looking forward to that. Damn it.
do you have any festivals like similar in Australia?
We used to have one called Soundwave that was like sort of like our Slam Dunk Warped Tour kind of lineup, but it would have bands like Metallica and Slipknot too, so it was kind of like that metal / punk / rock kind of crossover, and that was awesome.
I mean, we're kind of similar to the UK where we kind of have to pick our festivals, so we don't get to have too many specific festivals. There's not a punk or metal and a whatever. They kind of have to envelop all the alternative metal punk that kind of has to go together so they can have a giant one instead. So we always had like one festival or two every year. Now there's a bunch of little ones too, but right now they're all off, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, we always had Big Day Out and then Soundwave. That was like
Day Out too.
That was our like longevity festivals that stuck around for years. Yeah.
Like this album, it's your third album, so do you see a progression from the first album to here? How do you think you've changed over like the last 5-6 years is it since the first album?
Yeah, definitely. I think like the way we've been writing has sort of changed. Like I think we're all different people. When we started the band, we were all like 19 years old, and then I'm 28 now. So it's even just the change in I think the content that we're talking about in the lyrics, and I think there's just obviously from being a teenager to being late 20s approaching 30, it's such a change in your life and everything. I think a lot of that sort of will come across, especially from first album to third. And I think we've got new influence. So Scotty Mack is actually a new member, so he's been touring with us for like maybe the last 2.5 years, thereabouts.
3-ish maybe, I don't know.
3 years,
there.
yeah. Something like that. And like this was the first album where he's been an active writing member, and he was in the studio every day. So that gives us a fresh sort of like perspective and sound. Not only in guitars, you know, he was writing songs as well and helping with vocal melodies, drums, everything. He's a multi-instrumentalist, so, you know, just across the board. All of us love an opportunity to tell someone else what to do. I'm a drummer, but I love weighing in on a guitar part or a vocal melody. So
now that you're learning guitar, you're probably going to do that even more.
Nightmare scenario for everyone else. Yeah, I know everything because I learned the pentatonic scale. So,
So was there a moment, like, was there a catalyst that started the whole process of writing this album? Can you remember a moment where you're like, this is where we're going to go?
Oh man, you know what's funny is, yeah, I think with this album, it was sort of hard at the start because I feel like we've tended to had to write on tour, and straight away that can make it really tough on tour. It's really difficult, especially for a smaller band, to actually get a minute to yourself to kind of be in that space. And I think we kind of struggled with that because that was relatively new on the second and third album. But I mean, often you'll have a green room where there's 30 people sharing the one room as a smaller band. So, you know, the only minute you might have to yourself since you wake up till when you go to sleep might be when you go to the bathroom. So it's like, it's interesting to try and find that space and, you know, find a small quiet corner and write a song compared to when you're at home. You can get in your desk or wherever your creative space is and really hone in on that. But I think with this album, we had like 20 demos and they all felt like they were all over the place. And it was a lot more of like, instead of consciously being like, this is what we're going to do next, it was more like, we're going to write all these ideas and we're not going to limit ourselves at all. And then we're going to like pull them all together, see what kind of fits together, see what we're enjoying the most. And then, you know, the 3 or 4 strongest ones, we're going to start writing towards that direction, you know?
Okay, yeah.
So we cast a wide net, I think, with this album. And then saw what it brought in.
And does that mean that do you feel this album is more varied than what you've done in the past then?
Yeah, I mean, it's got some really interesting songs. Like we've experimented with new instrumentation. I mean, Scott, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's strange because it's kind of like, it's everything that's been learnt until now, used and utilized, as well as everything that we haven't done that we thought would be cool, we decided to try as well. So kind of like Josh said, like it really was a bit of old and new coming together, which I think it does sound that way. And I think people will find that. But yeah, like there was moments where I remember songs coming in and realizing that there was some different sounds going on and that we could probably try something different than the same old. And I think everyone started writing that way once we started realizing that there was a bit of a different life in these songs. I know Eni had some songs that he's been sitting on for a long, long time. And like, we finally felt like it was time to approach some of them just to see, like, is that going to make it? Like, right. Yeah.
Now that you're more involved with the band on the recording and writing side, was there anything that you came in going, right, I want to get my little bit in there?
Not originally, but I did get one. And kind of like Josh said, like that whole situation where you really have to find your own space. But sometimes that leads you to a corner of a room you may not have ever sat in. And so like, I remember we were getting towards the end of the recording and we had pretty much all that we needed, but we knew that we didn't quite have enough, like maybe another fun song or two. Like we needed something uplifting. And I went and wrote Big Cat Judgment Day in the kitchen while they were working on something else. And, you know, that's like, that song is about being in the kitchen and that song is very specific to where I was sitting. Right. It was the only place I could sit and work. And that led to this. And yeah, so it builds and it's like its own little animal thing. It just keeps gestating. Yeah.
So do you guys typically write kind of under pressure because you need new material, or do things kind of come over time and you put them together later?
I think it's a combination of both. Yeah, I think like, for instance, I think Cult was actually a demo. That was the second single, I think. But that was actually a demo that Eni had on his computer since like 2013 or 2014. So it's like 7 years old. I'd never even heard it. He'd never even showed it to us, but I remember he showed us and I was like, dude, this is sick. Like, yes, we should do this. And then some of the other songs, like Scott said, Big Cat Judgment Day, I think that might've been song 8 or 9. We came out with 10. So, yeah. You know, I don't know if that was the last one we wrote, but like some of them we were definitely writing in the studio. And that's always, it's that healthy bit of pressure of like, okay, we're paying to be here. You know, we have 8 weeks. If someone doesn't write a song, if someone doesn't kind of do this right now, we're not going to have an album. The label's going to be mad. We're going to be mad at ourselves. We spent all this money to be in the studio. You know, it's kind of like that, kind of like leaving the assignment until the night before it's due. Like it's a good motivator to make sure that you get it done. Like,
right. Work on a deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a bit of both. Like, I think sometimes it's just squeezing out those last few songs, and it can be really good too. Cause I feel like that's sometimes when you're at your best, cause you've just spent weeks writing songs, crafting songs, recording songs. Yeah. So I did like that previously when we've been recording, we've been like, okay, the first week we do drums and bass, and then it's very much like building the song week by week with layers. So, you know, for me, that's really boring because I'm a drummer. So everything's done in 2 or 3 days. And then I'm just sitting on a couch telling everyone else what to do. So it was cool that with this one, we worked on a song by song basis. So we would do 1 or 2 songs of drums and then build the whole song up. And then we could look at the finished product and be like, okay, how are we going to do the next 2 songs? And that was really different for us, I think.
Interesting. So if somebody had never heard your band before and they said, oh, play me something, what would you pick first that kind of gives an overall feel of what you're about?
Yeah.
That's tricky. I guess it kind of depends on who I'd be speaking to, but
that's a good answer.
Like if I was speaking to maybe like my grandparents, I would probably show them something different than I would show like a 20-year-old, you know, like I'd be like, here's the piano song for the old and then when the kids come down, you're going to play them like Voldemort or something like, but it is tricky. There's like, yeah, I don't know, Josh, what do you reckon? What would you play for people to say, here's my band?
It's funny because I feel like we've always been so in it that we feel like all the songs are so different. And then I remember like the first album we did, for instance, or the first EP even, like we were so worried. We were like, these 5 songs sound like 5 different people wrote them and they don't sound cohesive at all. And we had all these like worries and anxieties going in, and no one ever said that once. Like no one's ever said like, you guys don't have your own sound. It just sounds like you've ripped off 5 different bands and 5 different songs. Like but because we're the ones who, it's just so hard to see it as authentic when you're the one who made it. I think that's such a difficult thing to do. And like, I don't know, like I always think there's so much variance in our songs, but when I play them to someone else, they're like, oh, it's Blink-182. You know what I mean? Because if it's not their thing, like if that's the only pop punk they've ever heard, that it's like, oh yeah, it's got electric guitars and, you know, it's Green Day, like it's Green Day or it's Blink-182. So it's so funny.
It's really hard, to like reduce yourself to something like that, like a label, but it works, you know. It's like that's what people know, and it's tricky. I guess this round of this songs, like I've really loved playing Big Cat Judgment Day, like young and old would love that song. But every song we put out so far has had a great response, and like no one's really said any bad things as far as I can tell. It's been really lovely. Yeah.
I'm sure there's some corner of the internet somewhere, I'm sure.
I'm not looking.
Don't look. So are you guys the kind of people that sit down and listen to albums like in their entirety, or are you like playlists song kind of guys?
Well, I've always been an album guy, but I do love a giant shuffle.
Yeah.
What about Josh?
I've always been an album guy my whole life, but this pandemic, I just have not listened to albums. It's so weird. And it's funny because I read these studies that people weren't looking for new music early in the pandemic because they wanted to feel some sort of nostalgia for a better time. And a good way of doing that was familiar music that reminded them of, you know, different times. Dude, yeah, I've been listening to stuff from the 60s to the 80s, and that's like, I don't know.
It's like comfort food.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Comfort food.
Yeah, so I guess I've gone towards playlists. I've just been like going through like all different playlists and trying to find, and then just like making my own from the single like songs that I really like. But my whole life I've been an album person. I don't know if that's just the effects of having a Spotify account where I can listen to any song at any time. It's almost like being spoiled. I was going to say, when we're on tour, it's definitely more album friendly because I think those late night drives where you have 8 hours, it's just a lot easier to put an album on.
Find the chunks. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. You know, like that's, you know, 10 albums. Otherwise you're trying to queue up 8 hours worth of individual songs every night, you'd go crazy.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. Okay, so that leads me on to a good question actually. When you are on tour like that and you've got these 10 albums, do you have like go-to albums that you just find yourself listening to again and again? What are they?
Oh, Scotty, what do you reckon?
I've got like my go-tos for certain time of day, certain area of the country. Like I do geographically pick my music. So if we're in England driving around at night, it will be different to what we're listening to driving around in France during the day, like I'm so specific with what I listen to, but it depends as well. So like I spend a lot of my time, if I'm the driver or DJ and I've got Josh up with me, I might try and spend that 10 hours teaching a lesson on fucking 1973, like here's everything that happened that year. And that can also keep us, active and alive and awake during those times. But right. I've definitely got my favorite albums that like, if I'm driving across the plains, I know I want to listen to one of those albums. I couldn't name a single one right now if I had to. Go.
I was going to say, I remember we were driving through like, I think it was somewhere in California or one of the states just bordering it, and we were listening to like Bon Iver, and I remember that was a really good one for like, it was like late at night, a little bit sleepy, half the van was asleep or whatever, and like that's always nice. I feel like the guy definitely tries to capture natural landscapes, so when you're going through like a really remote area in the middle of nowhere, that's a nice one.
Well, that's where he lives like miles from any kind of civilization, so you definitely get that vibe from music. I know for me, if I'm ever on a long drive and we're like out in the wilds, then the War on Drugs is kind of my go-to. Because they have that very kind of I don't know, it just suits those big landscapes, those vistas, that kind of music. So you mentioned about driving through England at night. What would you have on? Like, would you play something chill because it's night, or something loud because you need to stay awake?
I have the only memories I have of late night England drives is me being a nightmare, like blasting Andrew WK and Metallica at 1 a.m. like
that like we just played that one Metallica song over and over and over that last UK tour. It became like so good.
Every time we left somewhere, anytime we were arriving somewhere, anytime we were playing anything like that. What was it? Just in anger? Frantic, right?
It was what's the one that says my lifestyle is my death style?
Frantic.
It's like
TikTok.
Yeah, that's
it.
I don't know. I think there's definitely ones that as well. I tend to play a lot of the National, at least 2 years ago. I'm still listening to a lot of the National, but nice. I know there was a few groans whenever I played them, probably because I overplayed them.
Right.
I think like someone in the band will discover a new sound and everyone else is like, oh god, again, like so I've definitely been that guy. But I think we go through a lot of different, depends how much alcohol's been drunk, depends how sleepy the vibe is, depends if people are like G'ing up or going to sleep.
I remember last trip I spent like a full day of like driving from England to like Germany or wherever it was. It was a massive day. And I just spent the entire day playing like classical music and film scores. And that was beautiful, driving around with these massive rolling hills and just Hans Zimmer playing. That was lovely.
That's dramatic. Yeah. As long as everybody agrees, I guess that's the whole thing, isn't it? Trying to find something that nobody's going to mind is being played at that time of day. So
and if they really mind, put your headphones on. See you later.
So going back to your album, which you said it's been completed for a year. You've just kind of been sitting on it. When's the last time you listened to it?
Ooh. Josh?
I haven't listened to it in its entirety in a while. I think I've been I try to avoid that once we finish it. Generally, I'm a little bit burnt out almost by the end of the mixing process, just because you have to listen to it. In some of our mixing processes, we've gone back and forth like 7 or 8 revisions on a mix. And I think at that point, you're so like deep into the like tiny little balance issues and like getting every little texture and layer change that I almost don't want to listen to it for a really long time. But with the album coming out, coming out,
it's
about time.
This week I've been kind of going through all the songs to refresh, like what are my favorites, and especially that we are starting to do press and things for it. I want to make sure I can talk about all the songs, and it's almost like I have to go remember all the things that happened and what we did. Like bit of homework, but it's good because it's enjoyable to listen to it again. So the abstinence has worked out
for a while. I didn't stop for a bit once it was done, and then I realized I would need to take a little break. Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't feel very fresh or special when it did come out. But now that we're like dripping these songs out, and then we did a live stream, like a surprise front to back stream about a week ago. And that was the first time I listened to it front to back in a few months. And that was really, really fun, actually. Really fun to do it after such a break.
Is there any tracks on the album that you're excited to play live that you just like think they're going to go over really well live?
Almost all of them, really. Like that was one thing I did notice.
That's a cop-out answer. Come on.
Okay, I'll specify. One thing I did notice with writing is like we made sure that every song, minus maybe one, could be performed live, basically as you hear it, and that was a cool thing to do. There's definitely a couple of songs, like some of the more upbeat, so What You Make It that we just dropped, and like Big Cat. They're really fun, jumpy, like the traditional upbeat songs. But there's songs like Atlanta or even City, which is track 2, that are like they're a little different and they're kind of fun, and there is different elements that we don't really have songs that do some of those things. So they will be fun to play live. It's a different sound, a different vibe.
Nice.
Yeah. Even like obviously all the singles we've put out, I think will be fun live. But there's a track called Lose and another one called Baked that I'm pretty excited to play. And I think they're the sort of ones that, you know, maybe don't always get the most attention, but I think they're really interesting songs. So I know Baked was like one that we all liked a lot as well. So that, I mean, it's just interesting. It's always cool to see which ones people gravitate towards, because we don't always get it right. And it's like I said, it's so hard to know like what people will want to hear. So sometimes it's a cool surprise, you know.
Congratulations on the new record. I'm glad you finally got it out. It must be a relief. But
yes.
At least, you know, we have some uplifting music to keep us going and keep you guys going in Australia as well until you guys get back out onto the road. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks very much for spending some time chatting with me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Much appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your week, and good luck with everything. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.